So this morning, we're actually looking at the impression of increase. So I want you to have a listen to this for the moment and actually just take a thought about what the impression of increase is. How does that feel for you? How does it sit for you? So the impression of increase, it's not the evidence of increase. It's not the bank balance showing increase. It's not the number of clients you currently have. Not what your business is doing today, the impression of increase. Because one of the biggest mistakes we make is waiting for our circumstances to change before we allow ourselves to think differently. So we say, when I have more money, I'll feel abundant. When I have more clients, I'll feel successful. Hi, Cassie. When my business is working, I'll believe in myself. When I get there, I'll become that person. But that's actually backwards. The transformation begins internally, and then we begin to see that internal shift reflected externally. So the impression of increase is about developing an internal expectation that life can expand. That there is more available to you, more ideas, more opportunities, more clients, more money, more experiences, more confidence, contribution possibilities. And here's the important part. We don't need to know exactly how it's going to happen. We need to become available to the possibility that it can happen. So if your dominant thinking is, I can't afford it, people won't pay me that, there are too many coaches in the world, I've left corporate and I don't know how to make this work, I need more experiences, I'm not ready, I'll do it when I have more money, then your mind is constantly looking for evidence that will support that statement as being true. So you're living from limitation. And this is where employee programming can really show up. When you've spent years inside an employment environment, you're often conditioned to think in terms of, what am I allowed to earn? What is my salary? What is my position? What will my employer pay me? What do I need to do to get a promotion? How do I prove myself? So this is generally a defined structure. So you work the hours, you receive the salary, you wait for the increase. When you move into business, the rules change. There isn't necessarily anybody that's standing there saying, okay, Cassie, you've done a good job this year. Here's another $20,000. Don't we wish? You become responsible for creating the increase, and that requires a completely different identity. You have to start thinking like the person who creates opportunities rather than the person who waits for opportunities to be given to them. And that's a huge shift. So I want you to think about where you are right now. Your current revenue, your current client numbers, your current bank balance, your current audience, your current confidence, your current circumstances. And I want you to ask yourself, have I accidentally made my current reality mean something about my future? Because your current reality is simply where you are. It isn't necessarily where you're going. And your bank account tells you what is currently in your bank account. It doesn't tell you what you're capable of creating. So your current numbers of clients tell you how many clients you have currently. It doesn't tell you how many people you can serve. Your current balance or your current business revenue tells you what you've created so far. It doesn't tell you your potential. And this is where we need to be really careful, because we can look at our current circumstances and say, see, this is what I'm possible, or this is what's possible for me, instead of, I want you to start asking, what else is possible for me? So this is the difference when we look at things. What is that we're looking at and seeing at the moment in our outside circumstances, to then internally going, okay, well, what else is possible for me? What else can I achieve? So what else is possible? I love that question because it just opens up doors. It opens up the pathway of, what else do I want? What else can I have? So instead of how am I going to do this, you can ask yourself, what would be possible if I didn't assume it had to be difficult? Instead of I don't have enough clients, ask who is looking for exactly what I have to offer? Instead of I can't charge that, ask yourself who would happily invest at that level because of the value I provide? Instead of I don't know how, ask yourself who can show me? Instead of I've never done this before, ask who do I need to become to do this? Because that's the completely different mental environment we want to be sitting in. Okay. So here's what I want you to think or take this deeper. Every day you're impressing something upon your mind. You're telling yourself a story. You're giving your subconscious mind instructions. And you might be saying, money is hard, business is unpredictable, I need to work harder. Hi, Sue, I can see you here. No video, that's okay. You might be saying things like, I need to work harder. I need more followers. Nobody is buying. I'm behind the times. I'm too late. I'm not good enough. Or you might be impressing something completely different. There are people who need what I do. I'm capable of learning. I can create any opportunity that I like. Money can come through many different channels. I'm becoming more confident and visible every day. I'm becoming older every day. Aren't we, Cassie? It's Cassie's birthday today, Sue.
Oh, happy birthday, Cassie. What star sign is that? What star sign are you? Is that a Libra? Oh, Virgo, okay. Never
You're
mind.
a Virgo, aren't you, Cassie? Are you a Virgo? Yeah.
Okay. That was a Virgo.
You could be saying things like, you're becoming more confident every day. You can solve bigger problems. I can serve more people. There is more available to me. And the question isn't which one sounds more realistic. The question is which one is creating the identity and the future I want. So think about the things you focus on. If you spend all day looking at what isn't working, what happens? You find things that aren't working. If you're constantly checking your bank account and worrying about money, well, what happens? Your attention becomes consumed with the lack. If you're constantly looking at other people's businesses and thinking they're ahead of me, they have more followers, they're more successful, what am I doing wrong? You're reinforcing the idea that you're behind. But what happens when you start looking for increase? You start noticing opportunities. You notice conversations, you notice ideas, you notice possibilities. You notice people you can help. You notice the things that are working. And suddenly your world begins to look differently, not necessarily because everything outside you changed overnight, but because you changed what you were looking for. And it all comes down to the decision you make throughout the day. What are you putting your attention to? So I want everyone to watch this. Well, everyone just grab a piece of paper. And at the top right, where am I currently looking for lack? And just be honest. Where are you looking at what isn't enough at the moment? Is it money? Is it clients? Is it followers? Is it time? Is it confidence? Is it experience? Is it your body, your relationships, your business? So we don't want to judge it. We just want to notice it. So I'll give you a minute to write that out. And then underneath that, right, where can I look for increase? What is already increasing? What is working? What have you learned so far? What and who have you helped so far? What opportunities are sitting around you at the moment? What conversations are you having at the moment? What ideas are coming to you at the moment? What have you created that the old version of you couldn't have created 6 months ago? Because sometimes we are so focused on where we're going that we completely overlook how far we've already come. So go back and think about, who were you 6 months ago? Who were you 12 months ago? Who were you having conversations with? Who were you talking to? What were you thinking about? Were you thinking about the impression of increase? So let's bring this specifically into business. So imagine two coaches. You've got Coach A who wakes up and thinks, I need clients. I haven't made enough money this week. I need to post again. Nobody's engaging. I hope someone buys. Coach B wakes up and thinks, who can I serve today? Where is the opportunity? What problem can I solve? Who needs to hear this? How can I create more value? What can I improve? What would the next level of my business look like? They're both potentially doing the same activities, but they're doing them from completely different identities. One is operating from that lack, and one is operating from the increase. And people can definitely feel that. You know, you can feel the energy of people. You walk in the room and you go, oh, I like the energy of that person. Or go hang out with that person. So your energy, your confidence, the way you communicate, the way you sell, the decisions you make, all of it's influenced by the identity you're operating from. So the impression of increase isn't pretending everything is wonderful when it isn't. It's not ignoring your numbers. It's not ignoring challenges, because we grow from our challenges. It's not sitting there saying everything is abundant, while like we're avoiding actually the work required to build that business. So it's none of that. It's about refusing to let your current circumstances become your identity. So you can acknowledge, my business isn't where I want it to be, and still say, but this is not the end of the story. You can say, I don't have the clients I want yet, and I know I can create them. So you can say, I'm learning how to sell, and I'm becoming excellent at sales. So this is the difference. It's about the language that we use and how we decide to talk to ourselves and talk to others about who we are. That's why the identity work comes in, because we're always looking at going to that next level. We're always increasing and expanding who we are. So I want you to imagine the version of you who has already created the business, lifestyle, and level of success that you truly desire. So not just financially, think about how she thinks. How does she make decisions? How does she handle rejection? How does she respond when something doesn't work? How does she talk about money? How does she talk about herself? How does she show up in sales conversations? How does she respond to an opportunity? What does she no longer tolerate? What does she believe is possible? What would she be thinking today? Because you don't have to wait until you become her to start thinking like her. You can begin practicing that identity now. So the shift I want you to make is this. I want to go from I hope things get better to I'm creating something bigger. You want to go from I don't have enough to what is available for me. And you want to go from I need permission to I get to decide. You want to go from who am I to do this to who am I becoming? And you want to go from what if it doesn't work to what if it does? That's the impression of increase. What if it does? I'm choosing to be whoever I want to be, to have the business that I desire, the podcast that I choose to have. And these are all the actions that we need to take. It's the impression of increase, the language that we speak to ourselves, the way we see ourselves, and we can see ourselves in the present tense. Although at this particular time we may not feel we are hurt, but it's coaxing ourselves to believe that that's who we are. And then through repetition, that's what actually will come. So your action for this week is, say, for the next 7 days, I want you to catch yourself whenever you hear yourself talking from lack, not to beat yourself up, just notice. And when you hear yourself saying things like, I don't have, I can't, it's too expensive, nobody's turning up, I'll never be able to do that, I need to learn more things, just pause and ask yourself, what would increase look like here? And then choose a new thought. Not a ridiculous thought you don't believe, a thought that creates possibility. Because we're not trying to fool ourselves, we're trying to train ourselves to see beyond the evidence we currently have. And this is where the 5 senses come into. 5 senses, see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. That's all the outside circumstances. Everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch are influencing how we think. We want to come from how do we feel. So let me leave you with this today. Your current reality is not a prediction of your future. It's simply the result of what has been created up until now. And if you want different, something has to change. Not just what you do, but who you are being while you do it. So your thoughts, your expectations, your decisions, your standards, your beliefs, your relationship with money, your relationship with yourself, your willingness to believe that there is more available to you. So this week I want you to stop asking, is this possible for me? And start asking, what else is possible? Because when you look for the increase, you begin to notice the increase. And when you become the person who expects more, you're much more willing to take the actions than create more, that will create more. So that's the work. That's the shift. And that's how we move from almost to actually. So we're saying we're almost there. I'm actually there. So thank you very much for being here. And also remember, start before you are ready. We will hold ourselves back all the time because we say to ourselves, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that. But we've actually got to start before we're ready. So when we're sitting in that discomfort, when we're sitting in that space of going, oh, I really don't want to do that, that's when we've got to go, pull your big pants up, Shelley. This is what you've got to do. You've got to get yourself out there, put yourself out there, be uncomfortable. And that's when the growth is going to happen, because when you're sitting in the space of being comfortable, you will not challenge yourself and you will not grow. And being a coach, being in this visible space of online, we are growing more and more every day. So the more we hold ourselves back because we feel as if we're not ready, that's when we've got to start patting ourselves on the shoulder and going, you know what? The only person that's going to be able to move me forward is me. And I give myself permission to do it. I know I'm not ready, but I give myself permission. So thank you so much for being here, ladies.